Boi, come, Bashalan, in the peace, Atele, putting crown on, Byler, her husband, Boi Kailar, come bride. This is a beautiful Hebrew wedding song, as if the angels in heaven are calling for the bride who has been waiting for 6,000 years to stand up bravely and put on the crown of glory for the coming King of Heaven.
雅各故事第11部分
Jacob's Story, Part 11.
第34章。一所有割羊皮的男子共有645人，另外还有童子246人也割了羊皮。二代是毗瑞得的儿子齐德肯，就是哈抹的父亲，还有他6个兄弟，没有听从示剑和他父亲哈抹的提议，没有如雅各儿子们所建议那样割羊皮，因为他们认为割羊皮是可憎之事，又因为合成的人没有听他们的话，他们就大为愤怒。第二天傍晚时，他们发现有8个童子没有割羊皮，他们的母亲把他们藏了起来。4时见他父亲找到这些童子，就带到雅各儿子们的面前，要割羊皮。那时齐德肯和他的6个兄弟都带着刀剑，想要杀雅各的儿子们。他们想把示剑和他父亲哈抹也杀了，甚至想把底拿也一并杀死。齐德肯对示剑说：“你这干的是什么事呢？在迦南的你兄弟之中，难道没有女子吗？你想找一个希伯来女子，可是之前你对她有了解吗？为什么要做这你父从没有要你做的事呢？7这事一旦在你身上发生会怎样呢？你怎么和你的兄弟迦南人说这事呢？他们明天就会赶过来问你。8如果你所做的在他们的眼中不显为美，又因为你不听从我们大家的建议，你以后怎么办呢？我们又怎么办呢？9如果这地的众人和你含的后裔兄弟听说你做这事，就会说：10为了一个希伯来妇人，示剑和他父亲哈抹吉那城的众人做了他们祖先没有吩咐过的怪异之事，在这迦南全地的人面前，在你在世的日子里，你要飞到哪里去遮盖你的羞耻呢？11你做的事我们不能接受，我们也不能背负你要加给我们的恶，因为我们的祖先没有要我们这么做。12明天我们要去召集迦南全地的弟兄们，他们要击打你和追随你的人，不使你们一人存留。13当哈抹和他儿子示剑及全城的百姓听到齐德肯和他的兄弟们如此说，就大大的为自己的性命惶恐不安，后悔所做的事。14示剑和他父亲哈抹回答他祖父齐德肯及他的伯父们说：“你说的话，我们听见了，也相信了。15你不要多言，我们做这事虽不是祖上所吩咐的，但也不是你认为的那样是爱希伯来人。16因为我们见他们的目的和愿望不是加入我们，也不接受我们的习俗，也不把他们的女子给我们为妻，我们做这事是为了把他们的财富夺过来。17当我们把他们的所有财富都夺了过来，我们就会把你所说的都加在他们身上。18我们恳求你停留片刻，直到我们身体恢复强壮，我们就一起对付他们，照着你心里所想的，也是我们所想的。19雅各的女儿底拿听到了他们之间所有的对话，就是齐德肯和他兄弟们所说的及示剑和他父亲哈抹及全城众人的回答。20他就赶紧派他的使女，就是他父亲雅各派来示剑的屋子里照顾他的，回他父亲雅各的哥哥们那里汇报说：21齐德肯和他的兄弟们要害我们，哈抹和示剑及全城的百姓也如此这般的回答齐德肯。22雅各听到这些话以后，内心大为愤怒，对他们的气愤和怒火在内心升起。23西缅和利未发誓说，指着全地的主永生的耶和华神起誓， 明日此时，这城里所有的人都不会存留。24世建成的男子中有20个青壮男子没有割羊皮，他们与西缅和利未打斗，西缅和利未杀了他们其中的18人，剩下的2人逃跑了，躲在石溪坑里。西缅和利未找来找去，也找不到他们。25西缅和利未杀死了合城的人，没有存留一个。26那时，全城有大恐慌，所有的人都大声嚎哭，妇女和孩子都大声痛哭，哭声极大，上达雨天。27西缅和利未杀了全城所有的男子，没有留下一个。28西缅和利未杀了哈抹和示剑，就带着自己的妹妹底拿离开了。29雅各的儿子们杀死合城的男子，又掠夺了那城和那地，就回来了。30西缅和利未掳掠那地的时候，有300个人站在路边，朝他们扬灰，又用石头击打他们。西缅冲过去，用刀把他们都杀了。西缅在利未之前进了示剑城。31西缅和利未大开城门，带着示剑城里所有的羊、牛和骆驼，也带着所有剩余的妇人和孩子，喜气洋洋地回到雅各那里。32雅各见西缅和利未对那城所行的事，又见他们带回来的掠物，就大大的生气。雅各说：你们对我做的是什么事呢？我才在这迦南地的民中得享安息，也没有人来搅扰我。33现在你们连累我，使我在这地的民中，就是迦南人和比利洗人中有了臭名。我们既然人丁稀少，他们听闻你对他们的弟兄所行之事，必要聚集起来击杀我们，我和全家人都必灭绝。34西缅和利未及雅各所有的儿子都对雅各说：我们住在这地，是件对我们妹妹所行的，他们为什么就沉默不言？他岂可待我们的妹妹如同街边的妓女？35西缅和利未从事建成里掳掠回来的妇女中，有85个还是处女。36在他们带回来的妇女中，有一个少女极为美貌，名叫巴拿，西缅就娶她为妻。在俘虏中还有47个男童得以留存性命。37西缅和利未从事建城里带回来的男童和妇女，都分给了雅各其他的儿子做仆人，直到从迦南地下埃及。38有2个年轻人从西缅和利未的手中逃脱，躲在石溪坑中，没有被杀。后来他们出来进城去查看，只见城中荒芜，只有妇女的哭泣。这2个年轻人大哭着说：看啊，希伯来人雅各的儿子对这城做的是什么事啊？他们毁了一座迦南人的城，竟然不把迦南全地的城放在眼里。39这2个年轻人离开示剑去了塔纳赫，他们就告诉塔纳赫合城的人，他们所遭遇的及雅各的儿子们对示剑所行的一切事。40消息传到塔纳赫王亚述的耳中，他就派人去见这2个示剑来的年轻人，又派人去示剑查看。因为塔纳赫王亚述不相信他们所说的，雅各的2个儿子怎么可能屠灭示剑这么一座大城呢？41塔纳赫王亚述派出的信使从示剑回来对亚述说：我们到了那城，那城已经被毁，没有男子存留，只有妇人的哭泣，也没有牲畜骆驼，那城所有的牲畜都被雅各的儿子拿走了。42塔纳赫王亚述大为惊奇，说：仅仅2个人，怎么可能毁灭如此一座大城？难道这城里没有人站出来反抗吗？43这不是宁录的时代了，也不是如同远古时代所发生的事了。塔纳赫王亚述就对他的人民说：我们当勇敢，我们要与这些希伯来人开战，为示剑城复仇，把他们加在示剑城身上的，同样加在他们身上。44塔纳赫王亚述就问他的谋士，谋士回答说：光凭我们无法胜过希伯来人，他们对那城所行的是大有能力。45如果仅有2个人就能对那城行如此的大能，而无人能抗拒他们， 那么，如果你想与他们对抗，他们所有的人都会起来对抗我们，如同他们对事件所行的。46如果你召集我们周围所有的王，让他们与我们一起对抗雅各和他的儿子们，我们就能胜过他们。47塔纳赫王雅述听了谋士的话语，深以为然，就照着谋士的提议行事。他就派人给塔纳赫和事件周围的亚摩利人送信，如此说：48起来，与我们一起把希伯来人雅各和他的儿子从这的抹去。他们对事件所行的事，你们没有听说吗？49所有亚摩利的王听说雅各的儿子对事件所行的，都大为震惊。50当时就有7个亚摩利的王聚集了他们的军队，约有1万人，都带着兵器，要与雅各和他的儿子们开战。雅各听说亚摩利王集结，要对自己和儿子们开战，就大为恐惧不安。51雅各就责备西缅和利未说：你们做的这是什么事呢？你们为什么要伤害我，使这迦南全地的人要毁灭我和我们全家呢？我们全家才刚刚安歇，你们就行这事，使全地的人都因着你们所行来对抗我们。52犹大回答他父亲雅各说：我兄弟西缅和利未杀光事件全城的人，难道是毫无理由的吗？因为事件伤害了我们的妹妹，又公然在神给诺亚和诺亚子孙的诫命上犯罪，绑架我们的妹妹，强暴她。53是践行这等邪恶的事，他城里的人怎么没有一个站出来指责他，说你怎能如此而行呢？这就是为什么我兄弟要杀光那城所有的人。神把他们交付在西缅和利未的手中，因为他们全都在神的诫命上犯下了大罪，行在他们身上的岂能毫无原因？54现在你为什么要恐惧不安呢？为什么要对我兄弟动怒呢？为什么要怪罪他们呢？55我们的神既然将事件和这全城的人交在西缅和利未的手中，神也必将把胆敢与我们对抗的这迦南地所有的王交在我们手中。我们要把西缅和利未行在事件身上的，行在他们的身上。56现在你不要害怕，把恐惧挪开，单信靠我们的神，向神祷告，我们的神必帮助我们，解救我们，把我们的仇敌交在我们手里。57犹大又派了他父亲的一个仆人去侦查，看看亚摩利王和他们的军队到了哪里。58仆人走了很远，直到西红山的对面，才发现亚摩利的7王和他们的军队。仆人赶回来对犹大说，亚摩利的7王和他们军队正在西红的旷野列阵，人数多如海边的沙。59犹大对西缅和利未及他所有的兄弟说，你们当刚强壮胆，不要惧怕，因为耶和华神与我们同在。60每个男子都站出来，带上他的兵器，带上弓和箭，我们要对那些不割羊皮的人开战。耶和华神是我们的神，他必拯救我们。61于是所有的男子都站了出来，无论大小，都带着兵器。雅各的11个儿子和他所有的仆人都聚集起来。62那时以撒还住在希伯伦，以撒所有的仆人也都带着兵器赶了过来，与雅各的儿子们会合，共有112人，前去迎击亚摩利诸王，雅各与他们同行。63雅各的儿子们又派人去希伯伦的别是巴，见他们的祖父，就是亚伯拉罕的儿子以撒，说：64求你在耶和华神面前为我们祷告，救我们脱离迦南的诸王的手，把他们交在我们的手里。65亚伯拉罕的儿子以撒就为自己的儿子在神面前祷告说：耶和华神啊，你应许我父亲亚伯拉罕说，我要使你的后裔如同天上的繁星，你也同样应许我，坚立你的话语。现在这迦南地的诸王一同起来，要对我的孙子们开战，而我的孙子们毫无过犯。66耶和华神啊，你是全地的神，求你听从我的祷告， 翻转这局面，使迦南地的诸王不与我子孙开战。67把恐惧放在迦南诸王和他们军队的心里，剥夺他们的骄傲，使他们在我儿面前惊恐，使他们在我儿面前转身离开。68用你有力的手和你强壮的臂膀，环绕我儿子和他们的仆人，从仇敌的手中解救他们。因你是全能的神，大有能力，万事都在你的手中。69雅各的儿子带着他们的仆人前去迎击亚摩利诸王，他们全心依赖耶和华他们的神。雅各也向神祷告说：哦，耶和华神啊，你满有能力，创造万有，你掌管过去、现在直到未来。其实求你平息这场战争，你大有能力，你举手放下都充满力量。愿我的祷告被你接受，愿你以慈爱待我，把恐惧放在这迦南地的诸王和他们军队的心里，使他们的军队大受惊吓。用你无比的慈爱解救所有信靠你的人。你把这民放置在我们之下，你也把这族放在我们的能力之下。
Book of Jasher, chapter 34. 1 And the number of all the males that were circumcised were 645 men, and 246 children. 2 But Shechem, son of Pared, the father of Hamor, and his 6 brothers, would not listen unto Shechem and his father Hamor, and they would not be circumcised, for the proposal of the sons of Jacob was loathsome in their sight, and their anger was greatly roused at this, that the people of the city had not hearkened to them. 3 And in the evening of the second day, they found 8 small children who had not been circumcised, for their mothers had concealed them from Shechem and his father Hamor, and from the men of the city. 4 And Shechem and his father Hamor sent to have them brought before them to be circumcised, when Shechem and his 6 brothers sprang at them with their swords, and sought to slay them. 5 And they sought to slay also Shechem and his father Hamor, and they sought to slay Dinah with them on account of this matter. 6 And they said unto them, What is this thing that you have done? Are there no women amongst the daughters of your brethren the Canaanites, that you wish to take unto yourselves daughters of the Hebrews, whom ye knew not before, and will do this act which your fathers never commanded you? 7 Do you imagine that you will succeed through this act which you have done? And what will you answer in this affair to your brethren the Canaanites, who will come tomorrow and ask you concerning this thing? 8 And if your act shall not appear just and good in their sight, what will you do for your lives, and me for our lives, in your not having hearkened to our voices? 9 And if the inhabitants of the land and all your brethren the children of Ham shall hear of your act, saying, 10 On account of a Hebrew woman did Shechem and Hamor his father, and all the inhabitants of their city, do that with which they had been unacquainted, and which their ancestors never commanded them, where then will you fly, or where conceal your shame, all your days before your brethren, the inhabitants of the land of Canaan? 11 Now therefore we cannot bear up against this thing which you have done, neither can we be burdened with this yoke upon us, which our ancestors did not command us. 12 Behold, tomorrow we will go and assemble all our brethren, the Canaanitish brethren who dwell in the land, and we will all come and smite you and all those who trust in you, that there shall not be a remnant left from you or them. 13 And when Hamor and his son Shechem and all the people of the city heard the words of Shechem and his brothers, they were terribly afraid of their lives at their words, and they repented of what they had done. 14 And Shechem and his father Hamor answered their father Shechem and his brethren, and they said unto them, All the words which you spoke unto us are true. 15 Now do not say, nor imagine in your hearts that on account of the love of the Hebrews we did this thing that our ancestors did not command us. 16 But because we saw that it was not their intention and desire to accede to our wishes concerning their daughter as to our taking her, except on this condition, so we hearkened to their voices and did this act which you saw, in order to obtain our desire from them. 17 And when we shall have obtained our request from them, we will then return to them and do unto them that which you say unto us. 18 We beseech you then to wait and tarry until our flesh shall be healed, and we again become strong, and we will then go together against them, and do unto them that which is in your hearts and in ours. 19 And Dinah the daughter of Jacob heard all these words which Shechem and his brothers had spoken, and what Hamor and his son Shechem and the people of their city had answered them. 20 And she hastened and sent one of her maidens, that her father had sent to take care of her in the house of Shechem, to Jacob her father and to her brethren, saying, 21 Thus did Shechem and his brothers advise concerning you, and thus did Hamor and Shechem and the people of the city answer them. 22 And when Jacob heard these words he was filled with wrath, and he was indignant at them, and his anger was kindled against them. 23 And Simeon and Levi swore and said, As the Lord liveth, the God of the whole earth, by this time tomorrow, there shall not be a remnant left in the whole city. 24 And 20 young men had concealed themselves who were not circumcised, and these young men fought against Simeon and Levi, and Simeon and Levi killed 18 of them, and 2 fled from them and escaped to some lime pits that were in the city, and Simeon and Levi sought for them, but could not find them. 25 And Simeon and Levi continued to go about in the city, and they killed all the people of the city at the edge of the sword, and they left none remaining. 26 And there was a great consternation in the midst of the city, and the cry of the people of the city ascended to heaven, and all the women and children cried aloud. 27 And Simeon and Levi slew all the city, they left not a male remaining in the whole city. 28 And they slew Hamor and Shechem his son at the edge of the sword, and they brought away Dinah from the house of Shechem, and they went from there. 29 And the sons of Jacob went and returned, and came upon the slain, and spoiled all their property which was in the city and the field. 30 And whilst they were taking the spoil, 300 men stood up and threw dust at them and struck them with stones, when Simeon turned to them and he slew them all with the edge of the sword, and Simeon turned before Levi, and came into the city. 31 And they took away their sheep and their oxen and their cattle, and also the remainder of the women and little ones, and they led all these away, and they opened a gate and went out and came unto their father Jacob with vigor. 32 And when Jacob saw all that they had done to the city, and saw the spoil that they took from them, Jacob was very angry at them, and Jacob said unto them, What is this that you have done to me? Behold, I obtained rest amongst the Canaanitish inhabitants of the land, and none of them meddled with me. 33 And now you have done to make me obnoxious to the inhabitants of the land, amongst the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I am but of a small number, and they will all assemble against me and slay me when they hear of your work with their brethren, and I and my household will be destroyed. 34 And Simeon and Levi and all their brothers with them answered their father Jacob and said unto him, Behold, we live in the land, and shall Shechem do this to our sister? Why art thou silent at all that Shechem has done? And shall he deal with our sister as with a harlot in the streets? 35 And the number of women whom Simeon and Levi took captives from the city of Shechem, whom they did not slay, was 85 who had not known man. 36 And amongst them was a young damsel of beautiful appearance and well-favored, whose name was Bunah, and Simeon took her for a wife, and the number of the males which they took captives and did not slay, was 47 men, and the rest they slew. 37 And all the young men and women that Simeon and Levi had taken captives from the city of Shechem, were servants to the sons of Jacob and to their children after them, until the day of the sons of Jacob going forth from the land of Egypt. 38 And when Simeon and Levi had gone forth from the city, the 2 young men that were left, who had concealed themselves in the city, and did not die amongst the people of the city, rose up, and these young men went into the city and walked about in it, and found the city desolate without man, and only women weeping, and these young men cried out and said, Behold, this is the evil which the sons of Jacob the Hebrew did to this city in their having this day destroyed one of the Canaanitish cities, and were not afraid of their lives of all the land of Canaan. 39 And these men left the city and went to the city of Tapnach, and they came there and told the inhabitants of Tapnach all that had befallen them, and all that the sons of Jacob had done to the city of Shechem. 40 And the information reached Shechem king of Tapnach, and he sent men to the city of Shechem to see those young men, for the king did not believe them in this account, saying, How could 2 men lay waste such a large town as Shechem? 41 And the messengers of Shechem came back and told him, saying, We came unto the city, and it is destroyed, there is not a man there, only weeping women, neither is any flock or cattle there, for all that was in the city the sons of Jacob took away. 42 And Shechem wondered at this, saying, How could 2 men do this thing, to destroy so large a city, and not 1 man able to stand against them? 43 For the like has not been from the days of Nimrod, and not even from the remotest time, has the like taken place. And Shechem, king of Tapnach, said to his people, Be courageous, and we will go and fight against these Hebrews, and do unto them as they did unto the city, and we will avenge the cause of the people of the city. 44 And Shechem, king of Tapnach, consulted with his counselors about this matter, and his advisers said unto him, Alone thou wilt not prevail over the Hebrews, for they must be powerful to do this work to the whole city. 45 If 2 of them laid waste the whole city, and no one stood against them, surely if thou wilt go against them, they will all rise against us and destroy us likewise. 46 But if thou wilt send to all the kings that surround us, and let them come together, then we will go with them and fight against the sons of Jacob, then wilt thou prevail against them. 47 And Shechem heard the words of his counselors, and their words pleased him and his people, and he did so. And Shechem king of Tapnach sent to all the kings of the Amorites that surrounded Shechem and Tapnach, saying, 48 Go up with me and assist me, and we will smite Jacob the Hebrew and all his sons, and destroy them from the earth, for thus did he do to the city of Shechem, and do you not know of it? 49 And all the kings of the Amorites heard the evil that the sons of Jacob had done to the city of Shechem, and they were greatly astonished at them. 50 And the 7 kings of the Amorites assembled with all their armies, about 10,000 men with drawn swords, and they came to fight against the sons of Jacob. And Jacob heard that the kings of the Amorites had assembled to fight against his sons, and Jacob was greatly afraid, and it distressed him. 51 And Jacob exclaimed against Simeon and Levi, saying, What is this act that you did? Why have you injured me, to bring against me all the children of Canaan to destroy me and my household? For I was at rest, even I and my household, and you have done this thing to me, and provoked the inhabitants of the land against me by your proceedings. 52 And Judah answered his father, saying, Was it for naught my brothers Simeon and Levi killed all the inhabitants of Shechem? Surely it was because Shechem had humbled our sister, and transgressed the command of our God to Noah and his children, for Shechem took our sister away by force, and committed adultery with her. 53 And Shechem did all this evil, and not one of the inhabitants of his city interfered with him, to say, Why wilt thou do this? Surely for this my brothers went and smote the city, and the Lord delivered it into their hands, because its inhabitants had transgressed the commands of our God. Is it then for naught that they have done all this? 54 And now why art thou afraid or distressed, and why art thou displeased at my brothers, and why is thine anger kindled against them? 55 Surely our God, who delivered into their hand the city of Shechem and its people, he will also deliver into our hands all the Canaanitish kings who are coming against us, and we will do unto them as my brothers did unto Shechem. 56 Now be tranquil about them and cast away thy fears, but trust in the Lord our God, and pray unto him to assist us and deliver our enemies into our hands. 57 And Judah called to one of his father's servants, Go now and see where those kings, who are coming against us, are situated with their armies. 58 And the servant went and looked far off, and went up opposite Mount Sion, and saw all the camps of the kings standing in the fields, and he returned to Judah and said, Behold, the kings are situated in the field with all their camps, a people exceedingly numerous, like unto the sand upon the sea shore. 59 And Judah said unto Simeon and Levi, and unto all his brothers, Strengthen yourselves and be sons of valor, for the Lord our God is with us, do not fear them. 60 Stand forth each man, girt with his weapons of war, his bow and his sword, and we will go and fight against these uncircumcised men, the Lord is our God, he will save us. 61 And they rose up, and each girt on his weapons of war, great and small, 11 sons of Jacob, and all the servants of Jacob with them. 62 And all the servants of Isaac who were with Isaac in Hebron, all came to them equipped in all sorts of war instruments, and the sons of Jacob and their servants, being 112 men, went towards these kings, and Jacob also went with them. 63 And the sons of Jacob sent unto their father Isaac the son of Abraham to Hebron, the same as Kiriath-arba, saying, 64 Pray we beseech thee for us unto the Lord our God, to protect us from the hands of the Canaanites who are coming against us, and to deliver them into our hands. 65 And Isaac the son of Abraham prayed unto the Lord for his sons, and he said, O Lord God, thou didst promise my father, saying, I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven, and thou didst also promise me, and establish thou thy word, now that the kings of Canaan are coming together, to make war with my children because they committed no violence. 66 Now therefore, O Lord God, God of the whole earth, pervert, I pray thee, the counsel of these kings that they may not fight against my sons. 67 And impress the hearts of these kings and their people with the terror of my sons, and bring down their pride, and that they may turn away from my sons. 68 And with thy strong hand and outstretched arm deliver my sons and their servants from them, for power and might are in thy hands to do all this. 69 And the sons of Jacob and their servants went toward these kings, and they trusted in the Lord their God, and whilst they were going, Jacob their father also prayed unto the Lord and said, O Lord God, powerful and exalted God, who has reigned from days of old, from thence till now and forever. 70 Thou art he who stirreth up wars and causeth them to cease, in thy hand are power and might to exalt and to bring down. O may my prayer be acceptable before thee, that thou mayest turn to me with thy mercies, to impress the hearts of these kings and their people with the terror of my sons, and terrify them and their camps, and with thy great kindness deliver all those that trust in thee, for it is thou who canst bring people under us and reduce nations under our power.
第35章，以亚摩利诸王带着军队在西宏的旷野中列阵，他们问谋士道：我们对雅各的儿子们当怎样行呢？因为他们对雅各的儿子心怀恐惧，说：看啊，他们才2个人就能屠灭世界全城。二耶和华神听见以撒和雅各的祷告，就把惊恐不安注入亚摩利王和他们的谋士、军兵的心里，他们就大大的惊呼。3他们互相之间埋怨道：你今日真是愚蠢，要么就是发昏，为什么要和希伯来人开战呢？为什么今日你要以毁灭自己来取乐呢？4看啊，他们只有2个人，毫无畏惧地攻打世界全城，把合城的人都屠灭了。世界全城倘无人能在他们面前站立得住，你又有什么力量能对抗他们所有人呢？5你也知道他们的神极其的爱护他们，为他们成就极大的奇事，这些是从远古至今从未有过。全地所有列国的神，无一能如同希伯来人的神那样行如此大能的奇迹。6他把他们祖上亚伯拉罕从宁录的手中解救出来，又把他从众多的仇敌手中解救出来。他们的仇敌多次想要害他，但无一成功。7宁录把亚伯拉罕投入火窑中，但神把亚伯拉罕从火窑中解救出来。8列国的神，谁能行如此的奇迹呢？以兰的4王抓了亚伯拉罕哥哥的儿子，亚伯拉罕就杀败了4王。今日还有谁住在所多玛呢？9亚伯拉罕只带了他家中忠实的仆人和少数几个他自己的朋友，就能追赶以兰4王，在一夜之间杀败他们，把他哥哥的儿子和所有被5王掳掠的财物都夺了回来。10你当知道， 希伯来人的神是多么的悦纳他们，他们也喜爱自己的神，因为希伯来人知道，他们的神必定把他们从仇敌的手中解救出来。11你们当知道，亚伯拉罕爱他的神，甚至可以把自己的爱子在神的面前献为燔祭，但是神阻止他如此行，因为亚伯拉罕是带着对神的爱行这事。12神见证亚伯拉罕手所做的工，对亚伯拉罕起誓，允诺他，无论什么灾难临到他的儿子和他的后裔，神必定会解救他们。因为亚伯拉罕爱他的神，没有为自己留下自己的爱子。13你没有听说亚伯拉罕的神对埃及法老所行的吗？你没有听说亚伯拉罕的神对基拉尔的王亚比米勒所行的吗？他们都看中了亚伯拉罕的妻子，因为他说她是我妹妹，因为他恐怕法老和亚比米勒会为了娶他的妻子而杀害他。亚伯拉罕的神对法老和亚比米勒所行的，你们都知道。14看啊，我们也亲眼看到雅各的哥哥以扫带了400人想要杀雅各，因为雅各夺走了父亲给以扫的祝福。15当雅各从叙利亚就是哈兰回来时，以扫去见他，想要杀他和他的儿子们并他们的母亲。是谁把雅各从他哥哥以扫的手中解救出来？是雅各所信靠的神。雅各的神把雅各从他哥哥以扫的手中解救出来，也把雅各从他的仇敌手中解救出来。雅各的神保守他们。16我们岂能不明白，他们的神赐给他们力量，把事件交在他们手中，他们对事件所行的，我们没有听说过吗？17倘若没有他们的神加给他们力量，仅凭他们2个人就能屠灭像事件这样的一座大城，有谁会信呢？他们的神必定是许可他们去屠灭事件和城的人。18你们和你们全城的人能胜过他们所有人吗？即便再多加1000倍。19你们当知道，你们不能与他们开战，因为你们是与他们的神开战，不但毫无胜算，反会在今日被灭了性命。20你们当要克制，不要把这灾祸带给自己。不与他们征战最好，虽然他们人数少，但是神与他们同在。21亚摩利诸王听了谋士们的劝说，心里满是惊恐不安，就害怕雅各的儿子们，再没有了征战的心思。22他们伏耳倾听谋士们的分析，采纳了谋士们所有的建议。23亚摩利诸王就不再敢向雅各的儿子们挑战，他们因为恐惧，心都消化了，于是就各自回去了。24这都出于耶和华神的安排，因为他听了他仆人以撒和雅各的祷告，以撒和雅各坚定的信靠神。那日亚摩利诸王带着他们的军队各回自己的所在，没有与雅各的儿子们开战。25雅各的儿子们在傍晚时分赶到西红山对面的旷野时，他们没有发现亚摩利诸王的军队，于是他们就回家了。
Book of Jasher, chapter 35. One and all the kings of the Amorites came and took their stand in the field to consult with their counselors what was to be done with the sons of Jacob, for they were still afraid of them, saying, Behold, 2 of them slew the whole of the city of Shechem. 2 And the Lord heard the prayers of Isaac and Jacob, and he filled the hearts of all these kings' advisers with great fear and terror that they unanimously exclaimed, 3 Are you silly this day, or is there no understanding in you, that you will fight with the Hebrews, and why will you take a delight in your own destruction this day? For behold, 2 of them came to the city of Shechem without fear or terror, and they killed all the inhabitants of the city, that no man stood up against them, and how will you be able to fight with them all? 5 Surely you know that their God is exceedingly fond of them, and has done mighty things for them, such as have not been done from days of old, and amongst all the gods of nations, there is none can do like unto his mighty deeds. 6 Surely he delivered their father Abraham, the Hebrew, from the hand of Nimrod, and from the hand of all his people who had many times sought to slay him. 7. He delivered him also from the fire in which King Nimrod had cast him, and his God delivered him from it. 8. And who else can do the like? Surely it was Abraham who slew the 5 kings of Elam, when they had touched his brother's son who in those days dwelt in Sodom. 9. And took his servant that was faithful in his house and a few of his men, and they pursued the kings of Elam in one night and killed them, and restored to his brother's son all his property which they had taken from him. 10. And surely you know the God of these Hebrews is much delighted with them, and they are also delighted with him, for they know that he delivered them from all their enemies. 11. And behold, through his love toward his God, Abraham took his only and precious son and intended to bring him up as a burnt offering to his God, and had it not been for God who prevented him from doing this, he would then have done it through his love to his God. 12. And God saw all his works, and swore unto him, and promised him that he would deliver his sons and all his seed from every trouble that would befall them, because he had done this thing, and through his love to his God stifled his compassion for his child. 13. And have you not heard what their God did to Pharaoh king of Egypt, and to Abimelech king of Gerar, through taking Abraham's wife, who said of her, She is my sister, lest they might slay him on account of her, and think of taking her for a wife? And God did unto them and their people all that you heard of. 14. And behold, we ourselves saw with our eyes that Esau, the brother of Jacob, came to him with 400 men, with the intention of slaying him, for he called to mind that he had taken away from him his father's blessing. 15. And he went to meet him when he came from Syria, to smite the mother with the children, and who delivered him from his hands, but his God, in whom he trusted? He delivered him from the hand of his brother and also from the hands of his enemies, and surely he again will protect them. 16. Who does not know that it was their God who inspired them with strength to do to the town of Shechem the evil which you heard of? 17. Could it then be with their own strength that 2 men could destroy such a large city as Shechem, had it not been for their God in whom they trusted? He said, and did unto them all this to slay the inhabitants of the city in their city. 18. And can you then prevail over them who have come forth together from your city to fight with the whole of them, even if 1,000 times as many more should come to your assistance? 19. Surely you know and understand that you do not come to fight with them, but you come to war with their God who made choice of them, and you have therefore all come this day to be destroyed. 20. Now therefore refrain from this evil which you are endeavoring to bring upon yourselves, and it will be better for you not to go to battle with them, although they are but few in numbers, because their God is with them. 21. And when the kings of the Amorites heard all the words of their advisers, their hearts were filled with terror, and they were afraid of the sons of Jacob and would not fight against them. 22. And they inclined their ears to the words of their advisers, and they listened to all their words, and the words of the counselors greatly pleased the kings, and they did so. 23. And the kings turned and refrained from the sons of Jacob, for they durst not approach them to make war with them, for they were greatly afraid of them, and their hearts melted within them from their fear of them. 24. For this proceeded from the Lord to them, for he heard the prayers of his servants Isaac and Jacob, for they trusted in him, and all these kings returned with their camps on that day, each to his own city, and they did not at that time fight with the sons of Jacob. 25. And the sons of Jacob kept their station the day till evening opposite Mount Sion, and seeing that these kings did not come to fight against them, the sons of Jacob returned home.
第36章，耶和华神向雅各显现，对雅各说起来，上伯特利去，住在那里，要在那里为神筑一座坛，就是向你显现，拯救你和你儿子们脱离苦难的那位。二雅各就和儿子们起来，带着他们所有的到了伯特利，如同神所吩咐的那样。三雅各到伯特利的那年是99岁，雅各和他的儿子及所有的仆人都住在路斯的伯特利。雅各在那里为神筑了一座坛，就是向他显现的那位。雅各和他的儿子们在伯特利住了6个月。斯那日，利百加的奶母乌斯的女儿底波拉死了。 底波拉那时与雅各住在一起，雅各就把底波拉葬在伯特利的一棵橡树之下。五比土利的女儿雅各的母亲利百加也死了，死在希伯伦的别是巴，葬在亚伯拉罕从赫人那里买来的麦比拉洞里。利百加在世的日子是133岁，他就死了。雅各听说他母亲利百加去世的消息，哀痛痛哭，又因为利百加的乃母葬在一棵橡树之下，雅各就称那地为亚隆巴丘，就是伯利。七叙利亚人就是哈兰、拉班也死了，神击杀他，因为他背叛了和雅各之间的约定。把雅各整100岁时，耶和华神向他显现，并祝福他，称雅各的名为以色列。那日雅各的妻子拉结又怀孕了。雅各起来，带着他所有的，从伯特利回到希伯伦他父亲家里。使他们还在路上的时候，就是在离以法他不远的地方，拉结难产而死，他为雅各生了一个儿子。雅各把拉结埋葬在去以法他的路上，以法他就是伯利恒。雅各又在拉结的墓上立了一根柱子，直到今日还在那里。拉结在世的日子是45岁，他因难产而死。雅各把拉结为他生的儿子称为便雅悯，因为他出生在回希伯伦的路上，递在雅各的右手中。拉结死后，雅各与他的使女毗拉同住。14旅便为自己的母亲利亚抱不平，他的怒火在心中升起，就进入毗拉的帐篷，把父亲的床榻从毗拉那里移走了。15于是家族中的继承权、日常的管理权和祭司的职分就从吕便那里被剥夺了。继承权给了约瑟，家族日常管理权给了犹大，祭司的职分给了利未，因为吕便拆毁了他父亲的床榻。
Book of Jasher, chapter 36. At that time the Lord appeared unto Jacob, saying, Arise, go to Bethel and remain there, and make there an altar to the Lord who appeareth unto thee, who delivered thee and thy sons from affliction. 2 And Jacob rose up with his sons, and all belonging to him, and they went and came to Bethel according to the word of the Lord. 3 And Jacob was 99 years old when he went up to Bethel, and Jacob and his sons and all the people that were with him remained in Bethel and Luz, and he there built an altar to the Lord who appeared unto him, and Jacob and his sons remained in Bethel 6 months. For at that time died Deborah the daughter of Uzzi, the nurse of Rebekah, who had been with Jacob, and Jacob buried her beneath Bethel under an oak that was there. 5 And Rebekah the daughter of Bethuel, the mother of Jacob, also died at that time in Hebron, the same as Kirith-arba, and she was buried in the cave of Machpelah which Abraham had bought from the children of Het. 6 And the life of Rebekah was 133 years, and she died, and when Jacob heard that his mother Rebekah was dead, he wept bitterly for his mother, and made a great mourning for her, and for Deborah her nurse beneath the oak, and he called the name of that place Elon-Bashuth. 7 And Laban the Syrian died in those days, for God smote him because he transgressed the covenant that existed between him and Jacob. 8 And Jacob was 100 years old when the Lord appeared unto him, and blessed him and called his name Israel, and Rachel the wife of Jacob conceived in those days. 9 And at that time Jacob and all belonging to him journeyed from Bethel to go to his father's house, to Hebron. 10 And whilst they were going on the road, and there was yet but a little way to come to Ephrath, Rachel bare a son, and she had hard labor, and she died. 11 And Jacob buried her in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem, and he set a pillar upon her grave, which is there unto this day, and the days of Rachel were 45 years, and she died. 12 And Jacob called the name of his son that was born to him, which Rachel bare unto him, Benjamin, for he was born to him in the land on the right hand. 13 And it was after the death of Rachel, that Jacob pitched his tent in the tent of her handmaid Bilhah. 14 And Reuben was jealous for his mother Leah on account of this, and he was filled with anger, And he rose up in his anger and went and entered the tent of Bilhah, and he thence removed his father's bed. 15. At that time the portion of birthright, together with the kingly and priestly offices, was removed from the sons of Reuben, for he had profaned his father's bed, and the birthright was given unto Joseph, the kingly office to Judah, and the priesthood unto Levi, because Reuben had defiled his father's bed.
读到这里，你觉得是应该把亚萨尔书的内容当异端邪说，以色列人美化自己编的，还是当补充内容去听？如果你接近以色列人，就知道这里面没有什么美化的，只是更加平等的描述双方。所以只有当你有这样的大背景，再去读上帝的话，才不会对以色列人有偏见，同时更加集中在以色列人的行为上，不允许半点错误。现在我们来看深度的地方，是见这希伯来语指肩膀，上帝有两个肩膀，最终要链接天地。原来是亚当与亚伯拉罕，一个是地上的，一个是天上的，最终地上的失落了，所以亚伯拉罕一家三人，亚伯拉罕、以撒、雅各来到地上，寻求亚当家失落的人，修补这个肩膀。可等修复完毕，就是雅各一个肩膀，一条腿，因为另外一个与雅各这个完全合一，融化在一起了，再也不分离了。
After reading this, do you think the content of the book of Jasher should be regarded as a heresy and the Israelites beautify their own compilation, or should be listened to as a supplementary content? If you are close to the Israelites, you know that there is no glorification in it, just a more equal description of the two sides. So only after you have such a big and deep background and then read the words of God, you will not be prejudiced against the Israelites and more focused on the Israelites with fair balanced view. At the same time, God will not miss any error in the conduct and action of the Israelites and record them faithfully. Now let's look at the depth. The Hebrew word for Shechem refers to the shoulders. God has two shoulders, Adam and Abraham, and ultimately, God wants to use them to connect the heaven and the earth. But Adam failed. So, the three generations of Abraham's family, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, came to the earth to seek the lost Adam's family, and repaired this failed shoulder. But after the repair will be completed, it will be known as the Jacob's one shoulder and one leg, because the other one was the same as Jacob's one. Totally one, melted together, never separated again.
由此可见，事件这个名字就暗指亚当。我们就来对比着看，亚当看见夏娃，是不是与事件看见底拿类似？骨中骨，肉中肉，喜欢的不得了。可50天后呢？夏娃要碰，还要吃让人死的禁果，亚当阻拦了吗？没有，就站在边上看。这说明亚当已经不关心自己妻子的生死了。等被赶出伊甸园之后，亚当会不会责备夏娃？那是肯定的。为什么该隐能对自己弟弟亚伯下得了杀手？实际上，该隐生活成长在一个暴力不断的家庭，那就是亚当在夏娃身上施暴，就如同事件那样，虽然喜爱底拿，但不知道尊重，直接霸王硬上弓，强奸了底拿。以后我们谈到亚当的故事，会细谈邻里的原因，亚当把自己的堕落最终失败归在夏娃身上，就像他对上帝说的那样，就是你赐我的女人惹的祸，所以尽可能泄愤怒。
Thus, the name Shechem alludes to Adam. Let's compare it. Adam saw Eve. Is it similar to Shechem seeing Dinah? Bone in bone, meat in meat. I like it very much. But what happened about 50 days later? Eve wanted to touch and eat the forbidden fruit that would make people die. Did Adam stop it? No, he just stood by and watched. This showed that Adam no longer cared about the life and death of his wife. After being driven out of the Garden of Eden, would Adam blame Eve? We can be very sure of that. How could Cain kill his brother Abel in so cold blood? In fact, Cain lived and grew up in a family with constant violence, that was, Adam was violent toward Eve, just like. Although Shechem loved Dinah, he didn't know how to respect her. He directly overpowered and raped Dinah. Later, we will talk about the story of Adam, and we will discuss the spiritual reasons in detail. Adam attributed his fall in Eden and final failure in doomsday to Eve. As he said to God, "It was the woman you gave me." Express his anger clearly and loudly as much as possible.
这就是为什么雅各家绝不会接受这婚姻的，因为底拿最终将在事件手上被折磨死的。上帝最终会在亚当家找一个好王去完成这公平交易，最终就是约瑟刺王，既娶了雅各家女儿，又告诉我们约瑟是示剑家，也就是亚当家的上门女婿到插门女婿，这就一箭双雕，完成对我们的启示。以色列家怎么都不会接受约瑟、以利亚，也就是便雅悯支派，约瑟支派是亚当家的。可当他们认出以诺之后，特别是以诺手上的那跟雅各的杖，他们就会接受的。在现在阶段，只要以诺领受了，也就可以了。当底拿被侮辱，又被关在事件那里时，雅各一言不发，这是因为他在反思自己的错。要不是他把底拿藏起来，不让以扫看见，他也不会遭此难。等儿子们回来之后，就开始商议对策。其实这群年轻人并不是要欺骗事件城的人，更别说是要杀他们。是上帝最终要杀事件城的人，因为他们成了撒旦的工具。
That's why Jacob's family would never accept the marriage, because Dinah would eventually be tortured to death at the hands of Shechem. God will eventually find a good king in Adam's family to complete this fair deal. In the end, it is the secondary king of Joseph, who not only married the daughter of Jacob's family, but also told us that Joseph was the son-in-law of the family of Shechem, that is, the son-in-law of Adam's family. God used this arrangement to kill two birds with one stone, fulfilled the arrangement and completed the revelation to us. The house of Israel would be very difficult to accept that Joseph and Elijah belonged to Adam's family, that is, the tribe of Benjamin and the tribe of Joseph are from Adam's house. But, when they recognized Enoch, especially the rod of Jacob is in Enoch's hand, they will start to accept this fact. Today, as long as Enoch receives the rod, it is fine. When Dinah was insulted and locked up with Shechem, Jacob said nothing because he was reflecting on his own fault. If he hadn't hid Dinah from Esau, this would not have happened. After the sons returned, they began to discuss countermeasures. In fact, these young people did not intend to deceive the people of Shechem, then to kill them. It was God who ultimately decided to kill the people of Shechem because they became tools of Satan.
上帝的计划是把雅各家变成一个国度，最终回家南地。而撒旦却要在这时让雅各家与事件，也就是亚当家混杂在一起，通婚就是要达到最终谁也不知道哪个是雅各家，哪个是亚当家。所以撒旦通过事件就向雅各家提出，为什么要经历那么多艰苦的过程？这家南地大得很，你们就住在这里吧。只要我们娶你们的女儿，你们娶我们的就可以了。
God's plan was to turn Jacob's family into a kingdom that would eventually return to the land of Canaan. However, Satan wanted to mix up the family of Jacob and Shechem, that is, the family of Adam at this time. So Satan, through Shechem, asked the Jacob family why they had to go through so many hardships. The land of Canaan is huge, so you should live here. As long as we marry your daughters and you marry ours, that's fine.
一开始雅各也没明白这么做不对，因为上帝除了让他看见约瑟要救雅各家，其他的计划并没有向雅各展示，而现在约瑟还小，所以根本不可能是约瑟担大任的时刻。所以雅各也不知道该如何做，他没有阻止要是见人割礼的要求。 雅各儿子们还没成人，虽然身体已经成人，但理解上帝旨意还欠缺很多，所以最终他们只能提出他们知道的，就是要世件也割礼。这当然是他们唯一能想到的，所以当时也真的是怎么想的，只要割礼好了，我们就是一家人。可上帝却不干了，因为亚当家只做肉体的割礼，根本进不了神的国，当然就算灵割礼了，可肉体不愿意割礼，像以扫那样踏痛也不行。我们要记住，神是一、合一、完全的神，必须方方面面都对才算成。
At first Jacob didn't understand that the circumcision of Shechem city was wrong, because God had not shown him other plans except to show him that Joseph would save Jacob's family, and at that time Joseph was still too little, and it was impossible for Joseph to fulfill the task. So, Jacob didn't know what to do, and he didn't stop his son's demands of the Shechemites to be circumcised. Jacob's sons were not yet adults at that time. Although they were already adults in physical appearance and strength, they still lacked a lot of understanding of God's will mentally, so in the end they could only put forward what they knew. Shechemites needed to be circumcised before they could marry each other. Of course, this was the only thing they could think of, so what they really thought at the time was, as long as the circumcision is done, we are one family. But God didn't allow this to happen, because Adam's family only did physical circumcision, not spiritually, and they couldn't enter the kingdom of God at all. Of course, even if they were circumcised spiritually, but the flesh didn't want to be circumcised, as afraid of pain as Esau was, this will not be allowed neither. We have to remember that God is one, complete and perfect, and one must be right in every aspect.
所以上帝就借着几个不愿意割礼，躲开割礼之人的恶心，让雅各家孩子们天真幻想破灭了。这些人强迫事件父子要杀雅各全家，抵拿派人报信，最终西缅与利未才不得已痛下毒手，这才酿成了事件的大灭亡的祸，使雅各家几千年背了黑锅，直到今天以诺才正本清源地把真相显明。其实最根本的原因就是撒旦的计划，最终才让事件的人不得不被上帝灭掉，要不然等他们恢复过来，就会来灭以色列家。你看，就算如此，迦南人个王也以要为事件报仇为理由，要来灭雅各家。虽然这次被瓦解了，但几年后他们再次卷土重来，与以色列人干了一仗。这是我们下一段要说的。以色列6日定迦南。
Therefore, God used the discussed action of a few people who were unwilling to be circumcised and avoided circumcision, so that the naive illusions of the children of Jacob's family were disillusioned. These people forced Shechem and his son to kill Jacob's family. Dinah sent someone to report this news to Jacob's family. In the end, Simeon and Levi had no choice but to kill them. This led to the calamity of Shechem's great demise, causing Jacob's family to be blamed for thousands of years. It was only today that Enoch revealed the truth and rebuked the blame. In fact, the most fundamental reason was Satan's plan, which finally forced the people of Shechem to be destroyed by God. They would come to destroy the house of Israel when they recovered from circumcision. You see, even so, the kings of the Canaanites also came to destroy the Jacob family on the grounds of wanting to take revenge for Shechem. Although this time they were disintegrated, but a few years later, they made a comeback and fought with the Israelites. One battle, which is what we will talk about in the next part, Israel's family would defeat Canaan in 6 days.
接下来就是一系列事情，上帝把老一代都接走了。利百家老奶妈又击杀了拉班，就是要以色列独自担当。到了雅各100岁，这才是上帝改名字的时刻，雅各正式叫以色列。而那人却提前好几年改雅各名字，好让他骄傲自满。最终雅各没有上当，因为他懂得敬虔的道。 接下来交代了拉结的死与生变雅悯，并且流变失长子的原因，根本不是与雅各妾有一腿，而是搬动雅各的床。对雅各而言，这就足够了。可对天上而言的公平与公义，却是流变在送拉结封前时，心甘情愿地把长子名分献出来，以换取妈妈的幸福。而上帝也按照流变的恳求，感动拉结愿意与利亚分享雅各的身体，最终姐妹回到彼此相爱之中。
Next, it was a series of things. God took away the old generation, Rebekah's old nanny, and killed Laban. These would let Israel take care of all responsibility alone. When Jacob was 100 years old, that was the time God changed his name, and Jacob was officially called Israel. The man, however, changed Jacob's name several years earlier aimed to make him proud and complacent. In the end, Jacob was not fooled because he knew the way of godliness. Next, the scripture explained the reason for Rachel's death, the birth of Benjamin, and the reason why Reuben lost his firstborn birthright, not having an affair with Jacob's concubine at all, but moving Jacob's bed. That was enough for Jacob to strip Reuben's firstborn right. But from the fairness and righteousness of the heavens, the real reason was that when Reuben was sending Rachel's mandrakes, he was willingly offered his birthright in exchange for his mother's happiness. According to Reuben's request, Rachel was moved to share Jacob with Leah, and eventually the sisters returned back to love each other.
拉结45岁死了，利亚51岁死了，一个真以色列人，一个代表读保罗书信的信徒。上天启示是，最终在伊甸园里的，从基督徒走出的是45%，从真以色列家走出的，也就是利亚的6个儿子支派走出的是51%，最后4%是其他教派与无神论的人。这里还要解释一下，拉结死了，留下最小的2个孩子，约瑟与刚出生的便雅悯，所以雅各留在拉结帐篷里照顾。结果雅各儿子们不能理解，一意孤行地认为雅各偏心，才出了流变搬床与卖约瑟这2档子事。对基督徒而已，再次归错于雅各骗了以扫，所以被儿子们骗，因果报应。其实就算雅各没骗以扫，上帝也会安排卖约瑟这出戏的，因为末日来临的实体必须这样安排。至于搬床，我们现在不知道有什么实体印证。
Rachel died at the age of 45, and Leah died at the age of 51. The true Israelite, a representative of the believers who read Paul's epistles, God's revelation is that 45% of those who will end up in the Garden of Eden and they walk out of Christians, 51% came from the house of true Israel, that is, the 6 sons of Leah, and the last 4% were from other sects of religions and atheists. Here we want to explain in detail, Rachel died, leaving behind the youngest 2 children, Joseph and the newborn Benjamin, so Jacob stayed in Rachel's tent to take care of them. But Jacob's elder sons couldn't understand this and insisted on thinking that Jacob was eccentric and ignored Leah, so they had done 2 things, 1, moving his bed out of Rachel's tent, and 2, selling Joseph. For Christians only, once again it is attributable these actions as punishment to Jacob who deceived Esau, so he would be deceived by his own sons. In fact, even if Jacob hadn't lied to Esau, God would have allowed Jacob's sons to sell Joseph, because the entity at the doomsday had to arrange it in this way. As for moving the bed, we don't know of any final entity right now.
好，在我们知道卖约瑟之前，要先知道为什么雅各儿子们妒忌约瑟。这就要提到雅各10个儿子杀退迦南几十万军队的故事。雅各怒吼阵群王，100人对阵几十万。6日骁战破敌胆，战后平安30载。雅各故事第12部分，也是雅各家最彪悍的6日大战，也揭示了雅各每一个儿子的特点。这对了解雅各最终的祝福非常重要。谢谢大家收听以诺谈天节目，我们下回见。
Well, before we know about betraying Joseph, we need to know why Jacob's sons were so jealous of Joseph. This brings us to the story of the 10 sons of Jacob who defeated hundreds of thousands of Canaanite troops. Jacob's roar shook the kings, 100 against hundreds of thousands. The 6-day battle broke through the enemy's courage, and after the war, it was safe for 30 years. The 12th part of Jacob's story, the most sturdy 6-day battle of Jacob's family, also reveals the characteristics of each of Jacob's sons, which is very important for understanding Jacob's ultimate blessing. Thank you for listening to the Enoch Talk Show. See you next time.